Welcome to Design with Marquee Season 1 2021 edition. 5 days of free virtual graphic design crash course. My name is Mark Mumangi and I will be your trainer. So this is Adobe Photoshop CC 2020. Yeah, I know the first time you're opening this thing and you're like, wow, what is all this? What are all these tools used for? But Photoshop is actually one of the simplest and easiest to use tools that we have in the creative cloud. So basically, when it comes to Adobe Photoshop, the basic thing and in every other software that we'll be using is mastering what each tool does. And once you know, you will be in a good place to do complex projects. So even as we'll be advancing, we'll be learning more things in Adobe Photoshop. But now I just want us to look at the basic thing, creating a document, a new document in Adobe Photoshop. So as you can see, it's just blank. There's no canvas. And when you load Photoshop and you want to create a new document, you go to File from the top here, select File, and then New. You have different options right here from Photoshop. You have saved. You can open your previously saved files in Creative Cloud. Maybe what you want to do is something that has to do with a photo, and then you have different dimensions like a 7 by 5 inch. If you navigate to art and illustration, there's this option for a poster right here. I believe that you can see. If you select that, it will give you the option to name your file. You can name it now or later. So let's assume you want to give your file a name and say this is something like Design with Markie Season 1. Okay, so let's assume that is the poster you want to make in Adobe Photoshop. Then after selecting poster, because you've already selected this one here, you don't have to change anything in the dimensions of your poster. Maybe the only thing you might want to change is the orientation, and you can use a landscape or a portrait. I believe those are familiar terms to all of us. So you can choose to measure it in inches, in pixels, whichever works for you. When it comes to resolution, most times I work with a 300 resolution. You can do a 72 or a 300, but 300 will work for you. And we have the color mode. Now, when it comes to the color mode, you can either go for a bitmap, a grayscale, CMYK, or lab color. If you're doing something which is to be used in the web, let's say it's a poster that you want for Facebook, your Instagram, RGB will do well for that. But most times when you are doing print documents, you can go for the CMYK color mode. But now because we are doing a social media poster, let's go for RGB 8-bit. Background contents, just leave it as it is. Color profile, you don't have to change that. And also pixel aspect ratio, you don't have to change that. So once you've everything set, you just hit create. So how do you start to make a poster? Which tools do you use for this? So in Adobe Photoshop, we have tools which are used for selection. We have tools which are used to move objects around Photoshop. We also have layers in Adobe Photoshop. So basically, the good thing with Photoshop is if you hover around a tool, you will be able to see, you'll be able to have a preview of what that tool does. So I just hovered over this first tool here, and so Adobe Photoshop by default has this kind of description in it that says this is a move tool and it moves a selection or a layer. And of course you can see from that animated clip that you can use it to move things in the canvas. And also we have this rectangular marquee tool which makes selection in the shape of a rectangle. So actually I don't have to teach all these, just hover over that tool and Photoshop will give you this short preview. I hope that all of you can see it, and then you'll be able to know what exactly that tool does. And then the next tool right there is a polygonal lasso tool. When you're using a polygonal lasso tool, you'll be able to make selections in your own maybe custom shape, a square, what, but it's upon you to decide what kind of selection you want, the shape of that selection. And right below it, we have a magic wand tool. It selects similarly colored imaging areas. You will find tools which are pixel based. They will make selections depending on the pixels, but others work with color. So the ones which determine selection by the color, we say that they are color based, and those which make selection by pixel, we say that they are pixel based selection tools. And right there we have the crop tool and so many tools. So as I said, just hover over these tools and see a preview from Adobe Photoshop, what each tool does, and it will help you to master this tool greatly. But as you move on, you will keep learning and advancing in using these tools and also be very effective in the use of them. The next thing that I want to mention, if you look carefully, for example, in the first tool, the move tool, there's this arrow right here at the bottom right. So that means that we have tools which are below it, or it's one, yes, but it's kind of a collection of tools inside one. So what you do to reveal the rest of the tools which are there, you right click on that tool and you'll see that we have a move tool and an artboard tool. If I move to another tool like this pen tool right here, I'll see there's this arrow at the bottom right. So this means there are other tools which are there. So right click on it to reveal the rest of the tools, and you'll see that you have a pen tool, freeform pen tool, curvature pen tool, add an anchor point and delete anchor point tool, as well as convert point tool. So let me just illustrate the difference between a portrait and a landscape document. For example, if I draw this rectangle right here, so to draw a rectangle, you grab the rectangle tool. It's in the tools bar right here at the left. You'll see the rectangle tool. You just grab it and draw in it. So you can select the fill. The fill, if you go to the fill, you can choose no fill. This X around this box here means that there's no fill. You can use a gradient fill. You can use a pattern fill. You can use a solid color. And let's assume that we want to use a solid color for this particular rectangle. So there is this option right here, color picker. If you click on it, you will see a wide range of colors which you can use. So anytime, if you don't master color codes, for example, let's say you want to use a random color, think of a color like olive color. So the code is 8080000. That is the code for olive, and hit enter. So you can see it has been colored in the olive color, right? But you don't have to master all those color codes out there. There are simple tools to help you pick colors and also identify colors online, and that makes it simple. So my reason for drawing this rectangle was actually to demonstrate the difference between a portrait and a landscape document. So ignore my background, okay, or let me just hide the background, okay. So this rectangle right here, it's at the middle of the document. It's in portrait. It's in portrait. So a landscape document, this is how a landscape document looks. If you flip it over, you will have a landscape view of the same rectangle. So that is the difference between portrait and landscape. And most of the posters we do, like the one I did, it was a square. So that's it about portrait and landscape documents. That was just a quick preview, something to enable us to differentiate portrait and landscape. So there's something called layers in Adobe Photoshop. At the bottom right here, you can see that I have a background with this lock on it, followed by another layer named a rectangle. So in order for me to explain what layers are in Adobe Photoshop, let me enlarge this a little bit, make sure that it clips to the canvas. and make it bigger. Yes, so just want to demonstrate the layer basics in Adobe Photoshop. If you pile books on a tabletop, you'll have one book atop the other books. And that is the simplest way to illustrate layers in Adobe Photoshop. You arrange your work in layers. And besides layers, you can also group your work in Photoshop. So to demonstrate layers, let me duplicate this rectangle. So the shortcut for duplicating is Control and J on the keyboard. So if you hold down Control and press the J key on the keyboard, you will duplicate a layer. And for me to be able to show the difference between the two layers and to illustrate that one is actually on top of the other, I'm going to flip actually one of the rectangles so that it's in landscape mode and the other one in portrait. So if I go, sorry, let me just transform that for you. Make a selection. You just make sure that what you want to change is selected. To select that, we have rectangle 1. If you click on rectangle 1, you will see that it is highlighted. If you click on the second one, you will see that it is highlighted. So always make sure that you highlight the layer that you are working on so that you don't make mistakes. So in order to transform this, there's a shortcut. You can use Control and T. It is called the free transform tool. So once you hit Control and T, you can see this black arrow here. If you hover around and just move it to the edges, you'll see that it changes to a kind of double-sided arrow, which has a kind of a bend. So this shows you that you can rotate the image. So if it's inside here, it's just black, a normal arrow. That means you can only use it for moving your selection, but you cannot transform it in any way. So to transform it manually, you can press Ctrl and T to open the menu for free transforming your object. If you move to the side of this rectangle, the shape of this changes. And let's just press, if you have a mouse, left click and then just turn to whichever side you want to rotate your document or your layer. And that is an easy way to do it. With that done, let us change the color, because now we may not be in a position to tell which rectangle is on top of the other. Is it rectangle A or B? So let's just name them A and B. We have a type tool. In the tools panel, we have a horizontal type tool. And as I said, if you hover over that tool, you will see that this is a horizontal type tool. It adds horizontal type. So to select that tool, left click on it. Those who are using your touchpad, just make that selection. Just hit your touchpad to make sure that you select that tool. So when you do that, you'll see that the rectangle has been highlighted. We don't want to type along this rectangle, but we will learn later how to type along a path. But we want to type outside that rectangle and maybe move it to the rectangle. So I just typed a letter A, but you cannot see it. So in order for us to change the color of the text I just put into Adobe Photoshop, we're going to select all, which is the shortcut for select all, Control and A. Control and A. So you'll see that my text is highlighted. Click on the square, on the rectangle, sorry, with the color, and you will see that a color picker appears, and then you are able to select a color. So if you want to do blue, you can select anywhere where we have blue, and then you can just use these arrows to slide down so that you get different shades of blue. And once you get the correct shade, you can use this tool to make a selection. So you can see the A is changing. As you select a color, it's taking effect immediately in the selected area or the selected layer. So let's do something like a turquoise blue, a light one. A light turquoise will do. That is close, and hit OK. And then remember to check this option. This is to confirm that you want to apply the selected image or the selected effect. So you just confirm by hitting OK on that tick. So go back to the move tool. So if I want to move this I'm on the type tool, okay? So I cannot move it using the type tool. For me to move it, I must activate the move tool. Now that is the work of the move tool. So I go back to the tool and select, make sure that the tool is highlighted. It's the first one here. Click on A. And once I click on A to make sure that I'm on the right layer, you confirm that from the layers panel. Here is where we have the layers. I hope all of us can see. So we can see here we have layers, channels, paths. When you open your Adobe Photoshop, you'll realize that it could be different from mine because I have done some adjustments. I have added my color swatches, and that is why maybe it may look different from yours, but everything else is the same except for these additionals right here. So to make sure that you are using the essential tools, because all tools are not displayed here. Remember, you can use Adobe Photoshop for 3D. You can use Adobe Photoshop for video editing. You can use it for advanced photo retouching. And so you adjust to the tools which you want to use depending on the kind of task which you have. But to make sure that you're using the essential tool, if you come over here, you will see that you have the search menu. And besides the search tool, we have this workspace option whereby you want to choose a workspace, and we have the option for sharing image. So which workspace are we using? We use essential workspace to make sure that we have at least all necessary tools which are relevant for each design project, be it a graphic design, photo editing, 3D. So the essentials workspace gives you almost every tool that is essential for that particular project that you are tackling. So if I come here, there's this drop down menu. If you select it and select 3D, if I click on any of these, I want you to note the changes on my tools panel. I remember I showed you, I think you can remember where the tools are here, where we have the tools, the number of tools. So pay attention to these and watch them change as I change the workspaces. So if I select photography, with photography, you'll see that the tools have changed. Not all of them, but some are changing. You have something like the patch tool has been introduced. If you go back to the workspace and select painting, you will see that the tools again will change to bring the tools which are essential for painting. Not all tools are changing. Be keen so that you don't get it wrong. And you'll also see that brushes have been added here because I'm using painting. If I go to the 3D workspace, you will see that the workspace has actually changed. Some tools here for 3D and other essential stuff for 3D. But we said if you want to have tools which are essential and relevant across all those platforms, you go for the essential. When you open Adobe Photoshop, navigate to workspace, click on the drop down list and select essentials, and make sure that you have essentials selected. So sometimes I may require you to take a screenshot of your workspace so that I see the tools that you are using. And a quick way to take a screenshot, I believe that a good number of us are on Windows. So there's this option in your keyboard for print screen. Depending on the type of laptop, or maybe your keyboard layout, you may have to press down function key and print screen, control and print screen, but mine is just direct. If I press the print screen, you will see there is that thingy which pops up. The first one here will allow me to make a rectangular snip, and that means that I'm the one who will determine how that snip will look like. For this one, it's a free form, so you can draw any shape you wish. The third one is a window snip. You snip a specific window, and then this is full screen. Once you take a screenshot, it can be saved in your pictures screenshots. That is if not interfered with some of those common settings of your computer. So I don't want to take a snip right now. Let me just close it. I explained all that while showing the layer basics. So we have A. I want us to duplicate A so that we type A and B. So the shortcut for duplicating, I said it's Control and J. With your layer selected here, you can see that A is selected, Control and J. So you'll see there's a copy of that layer. So if you go back to A and drag it aside, you'll see that they are already two because I duplicated that layer. So double click on it in order to edit. So we want to change that to B. So we have that B, and remember we said remember to confirm. Once you make any change, just click OK. There is our B and this is A. With A selected, there are different ways of changing the color of a rectangle. You can go back to the rectangle tool from the tools panel, select the rectangle, and from the top here you will see fill and stroke. What is the difference between a fill and a stroke? If you select a fill, the fill will cover the whole document, like it will just be painted on it. But a stroke is actually around that shape. Let me make this smaller so that we can see the stroke clearly. Make sure that it is centered so you can see that those dividing lines helping me know whether I have centered my work. But there's a video I've done on how to center things in Adobe Photoshop. You don't have to drag them all through. I'll share it with time. So you can see we have changed the colors. I wanted to demonstrate what a stroke is and also show on how layers are arranged in Photoshop. With A selected, if I go back to the rectangle tool, from the top here, you can see that there is no stroke. This red horizontal line, is it horizontal or vertical line in this rectangle shows that there is no stroke. But if you click inside, you will see that there are different options, different color options. So let's pick a shouting color or a bright color for our stroke. So double click or click once in the color picker, and then this window pops up for selecting your color. So we said you can click anywhere and drag to make a selection of a particular color, and once you're satisfied with the color, just hit OK. So that fill has been selected, that stroke has been selected, but you cannot see it because it's too small. To zoom in you use Control and the plus button, or Control and the minus button to zoom out. So zoom out, Control and minus, zoom in, Control and plus. So I think I'll be making use of so many shortcuts. I believe you'll be able to remember them. Back to A, the rectangle tool, stroke. Now I want to make this stroke bigger. How do I make a stroke big? You will simply, if you hover around the stroke, you will see that we have this arrow, a double-sided arrow. If you double click and drag it to the right, the size of the stroke increases. If you double click and drag to the left, the size decreases. So let's use a stroke of something like, let me just make it 30. It's for demonstration, okay? You can see there's a stroke on rectangle A and there's no stroke on rectangle B. So that is the difference between fill and stroke. And finally, you can see that B is below A. That is one thing that you really have to master in layer basics. And A is above B. That is how the two have been arranged. So you really need that knowledge in everything that you will be doing, so that you don't do work which is disorganized, so you start being worried why things are not working out for you. But if I select rectangle A from the layers panel, double click and drag it up, you'll see that B now is above A, and that is how layer basics works. So let us save our work and end the class for today. In order to save your work, the first mistake I did in Adobe Photoshop, my first ever logo, I designed the logo and forgot to save the project file. So there was no way I could edit that logo. I just had to do away with it with time. So make sure to always save your project file as well as the desired file format. Maybe the client has requested for a PDF, you export it as a PDF or save it as a basic image. So if you want to save your file, you go to File, Save As. I want us, you're not saving to cloud documents, just save on your computer. And once you select save on your computer, we're going to select a folder. Let me create a new folder and name it class files. I hope you all know how to create a new folder. Open the folder once you're done, and design with Marquee season 1. The name is already there because we saved it. Don't save as a copy. Make sure that layers is enabled. ICC profile, make sure it is checked. Don't change anything. If you want to change the file format, you will click here and select how do you want to save it as Adobe PDF, Photoshop PSD. But for you to be able to edit it in future, it must be saved as a Photoshop PSD. That is very primary and key. Make sure to save as a Photoshop PSD and then click save. So once you're done, you will see the saving progress at the bottom here. Depending on the power of the laptop, it can take time or be fast. So if you want to save it as an image, you're going to export. Remember, we saved as a Photoshop file, but now we want to export it as an image. So go to File, Export. We want to export it as a PNG. For JPEG, you can go to Save As, and then from the drop-down list, select JPEG. But let's do a PNG. I like PNGs because they are high quality. You don't have to change the name. Just click OK and save your work. To save as a JPEG, you go to File from the top here, select File, and then you have many options: New, Open, Browse in Bridge, Open as Smart Object. We may not use Adobe Bridge for now, but maybe I'll just mention what it does. So down here, from these multiple options, locate Save As. Save As, we said the first step you save as a PSD file so that you make it editable. Save on your computer. It's the same folder. If you want to save it as a JPEG, if you have worked with Word, Publisher, Excel, you usually come across this window whereby you select the file type. So if I click on these, I'm going to have Photoshop PSD, large document format, BMP, DCOM, Photoshop EPS, GIF. So let's say we want a JPEG of that image. So from the drop-down list, select a JPEG and click Save. Once you click Save, you'll realize that this is different from a PNG because you have to set the quality of your JPEG image. So you have basic options. You can see image options, quality 3, that is a low quality. So if you click this option for either low or high, you will see that we have low, medium quality, high quality, and maximum quality. You also don't have to do all that. You can directly move this arrow, double click, drag it to the left to reduce the file size, the file quality, double click, drag to the right to increase the file size. But because we don't want to utilize a lot of space, and these are files meant for class exercise, just come here and select a medium quality. In the format options, leave it as baseline standard. You don't have to change that, okay? And then hit OK. So once that is done, it will be processed and saved. I said depending on the power of your computer, it may take long or be fast. So let's go to export. As we want to export these, the client has said export my poster as a PNG. Okay, sorry about that. So go to file, export, and then you will see that there are different options. The first one is quick export as PNG. The second one, export as. Now, the second option for export as is when you want to optimize your files for web. People like Willie from ZTech, I know you will need this feature. When you want to export things for your web, you can see that we have that option for save for web at the bottom there. So try all these options. But now for a PNG, you go to export, quick export as PNG, click OK. It will bring you to the folder location, and then you'll be able to export it. I don't want to export it a second time because I've already done it. I don't need to replace the previous files. A client may ask you to export a PNG with a clear background. So how do you do that? Go back to layers. You can see this background layer, right? So there's this eye, this sign which resembles an eye. If you click it, you'll see that the background disappears. Let me do it on the colored ones. If you click this eye symbol, it's for hide or show layers. So if you make a layer visible, it will be seen. If you hide the layer, it will not be seen. If you click that eye, B disappears. You click it back, you make the layer visible. You hide or make it visible. So if you want to export as a clean PNG with a clean background, especially for logos, come to the background layer. It's the one at the bottom. It's locked because you don't have to change this, but you will see later how to change background colors. So click this one. You will see that the background has disappeared. So to make sure that your file has no background, you don't export as a JPEG but as a PNG. So go back to file, export, quick export as PNG. When you quick export as PNG and you say save as, you don't have to change anything here because you've already stated it's a PNG. So for you to be able to know that this is a clean PNG, you can come right here where we have design with Marquee season 1 and write clean PNG. That way you will be able to differentiate the clean PNG and the image which has a background, and then click save. Your document will be saved.